Black-red hollow on Stein's side.
For sideboard options, Stein looks to have 3 Land of the Void and 2 Thoughtseize to try to break up Muller. Graveyard Hate is fine. Thoughtseize is also fine. More than anything, he needs to produce a fast clock in this matchup. Storm is one of the matchups that I generally found pretty frustrating playing Hollow 1. You're just not that fast without your best draws. Burning Inquiry messing up their hand is actually one of your more likely ways to win the game. Which is, it's not a bad thing. I mean, that's just something your deck does sometimes. So that's a feature of the deck. But it's kind of outside of your control is the problem.
Right. Paul back on the same list as Caleb looks like for this weekend. We had some switching with them in a while. Paul was a fan of Pyromancer Ascension. Caleb was not. Neither of them on it anymore.
Yeah, I know when Caleb moved off it, he was saying it's a little bit too much Graveyard Hate in the format right now. It's not really coming in a way where it matters in the attrition matchups, as they tend to be doing things like Leyline, Nile Spellbomb, Rest in Peace, what have you. Paul seems to have come around on that. And we've seen a fair amount of Leyline of the Void in sideboards already this weekend. We actually saw a Leyline of the Void mirror in one of our rounds.
Yeah, that was early on. We had Jody Keith and Aaron Barrich. Jody Keith still undefeated, actually. He's playing Living End.
Yeah. Not a deck that was necessarily on anybody's radar going into this weekend, but Jody's having a great tournament so far.
You mentioned that in the 6-0s, both Hoagland and Jody Keith are among our about 12 undefeated players left, seeing some surprise archetypes up at the top right now.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 2 Storm decks. Game 3 here, though, underway. Paul on the play. See Faithless Looting turn 1 here from Stein.
And with him not starting on Street Wraith, that diminishes the odds that there's something like a turn 1 Hollow 1. Could be setting up with some Bloodghast or Flamewake Phoenixes, or what he really does not want to be the case, just cleaning out a clunky draw. Hollow 1's a deck that definitely wants to mulligan if you're not generating some kind of value with your Faithless Looting. Hand looks to be a little heavy on lands from what I've seen.
Yeah, agreed.
I want to say I see 2 fetch lands in a swamp.
Yeah, in this kind of matchup, he doesn't have that much disruption. So I would think his speed is going to be very important.
Right. And I'm pretty sure the first card off this Faithless Looting was a Leyline of the Void.
All right, well, we'll discard that one.
Maybe you cast it for 4. Okay, you're right.
all right, we'll discard the 2. Here's Street Wraith. Love to find a Hollow 1. Another Leyline of it. You saw it on his face, too, when he picked it up.
Oh, yeah. That's not where you want those ones.
You hate to see that happen.
Right. It's part of the cost of having that as your Graveyard Hate plan, though.
Yeah. And then he draws the... I love watching this deck. It's just the swings. I don't think I could take playing this deck for a whole tournament. I would lose my mind.
It can be rough. You have to really appreciate the feeling when your deck just does the most busted possible thing, enough to get over exactly what you just saw here.
My cards, sometimes they cost 0, and sometimes they cost a ton.
Sometimes I win the game very easily. Sometimes I lose the game with no decisions, and there's nothing that anybody could have done about either of those things.
Peer through depths and Paul Muller finds Manamorphose.
Yeah, that's one you're always happy to have access to. And with Paul under no pressure, Storm gets to play that game where Paul just makes land drops, inevitably just gets to do something big. And with Manamorphose as one of the cantrips, it means he can maybe look at one of those really low investment combo startups.
Manamorphose from Paul.
Getting aggressive. Shock for a Steam Vents for that.
All right. Well, I mean, there's not too much to be worried about, right? Out of instant speed, I mean, if he just has something rolled up, he just has it. We'll see what it is.
Thinking of it less in terms of worry and more in terms of what he could have. And if he's starting here, I assume it's Empty the Warrens.
Okay. 3 red. And it is. Empty the Warrens making 6 goblins from Paul Muller.
With Abraham Stein controlling no non-land permanents, 6 goblins is a good amount of pressure.
Yeah, and it didn't, and this is one of the more interesting parts about Storm, it didn't cost Paul all that much. You know, the first ritual was a Manamorphose.
Right. Yeah, 2 cards out of his hand to make 6 1/1s. And as is the case with Storm, if this is all cleaned up, which Hollow One's not very good at doing, those rituals are just left over for a Past in Flames at some point down the line. And the way things are going, unclear if Stein has anything better than Flashback Faithless Looting on the following turn. Powerful end step here.
Bolt goes that Bolt a Goblin, push a Goblin?
Sure looks like it.
All right. I mean, no one of the cards left over for Abe is Leyline of the Void. So it seems like he's hoping for a good Faithless Looting, a good Burning Inquiry, something. He needs to get something going.
Well, he drew a Black Cleave Cliffs.
All right. Well, here's the Faithless Looting. Certainly has a Leyline to discard to it.
Yeah. Finding a Street Wraith would have been good, so he could cast Hollow One.
Actually, at this point, how good is Leyline? I mean, it's only 1 turn away.
There's a good chunk of graveyard already. The Leyline would not be worth 0, but he has to get some blockers in line. Paul doesn't really need to use his graveyard when he only has to grave shot for 10 or 6.
And again, he tapped out for the looting, drew a Hollow One, so he didn't have the mana for it. Back over to Paul. He'll swing for 4. Abe down to 10. And he just passes. Looks like Paul's trying to walk this in with damage. At least 1 Lightning Bolt in his hand.
Yeah.
We'll see Burning Inquiry from Stein. This will allow him to make a Hollow One. And now we see 2 Hollow Ones. Looks like he has something going.
Those are fine blockers.
Yeah, and that's really the issue, right? Is that they may not be too much more. He's going to get rid of that Thoughtseize. At 10, that's just too risky.
Yeah, Paul just has too many cards in hand. Losing 2 life, not great, and it's very unlikely that your Thoughtseize breaks anything up.
And it's a pair of Hollow Ones here from Stein.
On the table, Paul has an attack that puts Stein down to 8. With some Lightning Bolts available, it's really easy to make a Grape Shot lethal from here. It's nothing for 0 that Paul has to think about. I think he's a little bit light on red mana, and that's why he's looking at Lightning Bolting end step here.
Yeah, and he sends Abraham down to 7. So for Abe, can push 2 more. That push Abe down to 5. We'll see if Paul has the rest of it covered. Just a Bolt and a Grape Shot might do it. A block for 2. Abe down to 5. Is it Bolt Grape Shot from Paul? We'll see.
Yeah, that would certainly be lethal.
Bolt you. This feels like it.
I would be surprised if there was no Grape Shot.
And that makes it 5. Paul Muller improves to 7-0 with Storm.
Yeah, and part of our conversation this weekend has been how